meeting to order and start with a pledge. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We had originally invited the public, our ratepayers, to attend this meeting so they could listen to the project that we have coming up, the bond issue and that sort of thing. And if there's anybody out here from the public that would like to make a statement or have questions, certainly welcome to sign up out here at the desk. Are there any questions now from the public?
Questions after the presentation.
Okay. First off, we're going to have the overview of the Southside Service Area project. That's the issue we're going for, the bonding issue. And so if you would like, we will have a presentation by Carol. And, okay, thank you. Excuse me, Carol, Bob George, and they'll give a presentation on this. It's all yours.
Okay, thank you. So I'm Carol Bragg, I'm the CFO, and this presentation is very similar to the one that I shared with the board at the work session last week, but I have made a couple of adjustments to it and enhanced it a little bit to try to provide some more information for the public that may have an interest in what it is that we're trying to do. But again, we're talking about where we are, how we got here, and where we're going. So initially, we want to talk about how we are getting ready for issuing these bonds. And we did have cool and damp weather in 2010 and 11, and after this last summer, it's probably kind of out of people's memories since this last summer was very warm and dry. But that did have an impact on our water revenues, and as we discussed often in our budget process, our water revenues are about 97 or 98% of our total revenues for the district. We ended up in 2011 and 2012, we had to draw on our rate stabilization fund to meet our debt covenants. And that's not as bad as it sounds, that's what the money was put aside for, but we did draw on the rate stabilization fund for 2 years in a row. Since that time, the board has taken several actions that have moved us to a place where we will be able to go to the bond market. And one of the things that we did was approve reserve policies, and that ensures that we have enough money, rate revenue available for future CIP, for ongoing operational costs, as well as contingency. And those reserve policies set out how we go about putting that money aside. The board also approved an 8-year rate plan, and that's providing enough revenue to cover the existing debt that we have, which is minimal, and preparing us to take on some additional debt. And in doing that rate structure process, we weighted more of the rate increase to the base rate so that our insured amount of money that comes in every billing cycle is a little bit higher and coming closer to covering the fixed cost of operating the district. So this is putting us in a good position for our visit with rating agencies. So the results of those actions is we can see from this graph looking at changes in the reserve balances. The purple color right here is the capital reserve fund. And we are putting money in there based on the reserve policies every year, but we're also using some of that money for CIP, for capital improvement projects. You can also see the brownish orange color here, that is getting smaller. That's our SDCs, and it's because we don't have a lot of potential for development within our boundaries. And so our SDC money that was reserved for a long time has been spent on capital improvement projects, and we're now just kind of holding our own. We're bringing in a little bit and we're spending a little bit. So here's a graph showing our water sales, and you can see that with the rate increases in place, our water sales are increasing. You can also see from the lines down here across the bars, the green line is our wholesale consumption, which is very, very stable, steady volumes of water being used. And then the purple one is our retail, so all the rest of our ratepayers. And it's, you know, you can see little dips and changes. You can see how it was kind of lower in 2010 and 11. But it also is very flat. We are not seeing a lot of increased consumption. So where we are. With those actions that had been taken, we have sufficient revenues to meet our current operating requirements, our current debt, and proposed debt. We have sufficient revenues or reserves in place to meet our planned and unplanned system improvements and maintenance of the system. And we also have a long-term plan to meet the needs of our customers. So some of the things, the benefits of these projects for the CRW customers. When we move water to the south side of the district, we're going to reduce our reliance on water purchase from the South Fork Water Board, which will provide us better assurance of water being available as kind of the third man in line with South Fork. If they have any issues or problems, the owners are the primary people for receiving the water. And we want to make sure that we have enough water for our customers that utilize that water on the south side. Also, our plant has enough capacity to provide this water, and we can be a lot more efficient if we can operate the plant at a higher level of production.
Carol, one question, just for me, maybe public. We make that statement. Where would we like to be with our plant? Is it 80%? You know, it's kind of where most of the time we want to be. So what would that be for MGD?
I'm not sure. We're at about 40 now.
Oh, okay.
And so,
Take you between 20 and 24.
and we've set aside 10 MGD for Sunrise. So, and we're holding 10 in reserve.
Okay,
So, over and above those 2 amounts.
okay. So,
Well, of 30 MGD, 80% is 24 MGD.
right, so 24 is where we ought to be. And what do we operate at now?
40%.
40%.
40, okay, thank you.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Got it. Wait a second, that number doesn't add up. Thanks.
So another benefit we get from bonding for this is we will be improving the resiliency of the system. We're going to be putting in new pipes and new pump stations, new storage facilities that will all be built at today's code standards. So hopefully a little more resilient, a little stronger than some of the old pipes that we have around now. This will also provide some significant improvements in fire flows, particularly on the south side, to ensure that we do have adequate water available should there be a fire up there. And the addition of reservoirs will also enable us to better meet peak demand. Another point that I think is important to share is we have a water master plan and it has a list of projects. And now you can look at, and Adam will be presenting later, this new list of projects, and we have the board over here. Of those new projects, a significant number of those have been in the works, in the planning stage for quite a long time. And I've listed a few of them. The 152nd Avenue Reservoir has been in our water master plan, Butterfield Transmission, portions of the Razzle Road Transmission Main, and the Bradley Road Transmission Main. So by borrowing money, we're just speeding up the implementation of those improvements that we've been talking about for many years. The estimated dollars from the master plans that are now in this plan is somewhere around 14 million, maybe a little bit higher than that. So, you know, when we look at this total number, we're not saying, hey, we've got a water master plan to do this, and then we're going to add all of this on top of it. There's some overlap there. So it's stuff that we needed to do for the benefit of the district without pulling it all into this project. So that's my presentation. I'd be happy to answer any questions, or I can step aside if the public would like to talk, but I'm available to answer questions at any time.
Are there any questions? If not, we'll go ahead and continue with Bob George as the chief engineer, his presentation.
Well, I have to admit, I don't have one.
Oh, okay. So then it's Adam that I should have called him. Is it
That's
correct?
later in
No,
the
I'll be
agenda.
presenting later.
No, Adam, you're gonna come on this one.
I'll be presenting later in the evening on
Oh,
the
okay.
informational item.
Yeah, he'll outline the whole project, the backbone, and review the list and our strengths. My name was on this presentation, somewhat of a leftover from last week, a little bit, but if there's any technical questions, I am here,
Okay.
and we can discuss those. But I didn't have a formal presentation.
I don't hear anyone with any questions, so then we'll just continue. Okay, now I'd like to hear information with the approval of the agenda.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
May I have a second?
But we need to adjourn the other meeting, I think.
Yeah,
Oh, that's right.
you should adjourn the informational session. I think the one additional point that I know the board has asked staff to pay particular attention to is the idea about the hardening of our infrastructure. As we move forward, and what we're really talking about there is earthquake proofing, although there's no such thing. But making sure that our improvements, and as you saw here, $14 million of our CIP is going to be included in this project, which would make great strides in moving us toward the improvement of our infrastructure for resiliency purposes.
Okay.
I guess, and there's one other thing that I don't think we've talked enough about, and that is that when we start selling Clackamas River water on the south side, we don't have to pay the wheeling charges and the rate that we're getting from South Fork any longer, and it helps to reduce that equation on that side of the thing, which is also a plus, which makes it easier to manage the budgets.
Right.
Well, interestingly enough, it also helps South Fork, who's close to capacity, and they have major projects in Oregon City coming up. This kind of gives them a little bit of breathing room before they'll have to increase their plant capacity. So it's beneficial to all concerned, really, as you go through this.
Well, and it helps them from a resiliency standpoint too.
Yeah.
Because now there's two ways to get water into that south side.
Okay, now we'll go to the adjournment.
I think you have another.
Oh, I'm just gonna say, I don't know how many public knows about this, but when I was first getting the update on the backbone project, I found this map really helpful. So if there's anybody from the public that doesn't know where we're gonna be building the pipes, I think that map is a very good one. And I think the other thing they brought up last week that wasn't said was that we were gonna be starting with the north end and then doing the south end. It'll be done in two parts. I don't know if the public would want to know that or not.
They probably will, and that will be answered later on.
Okay.
You gave me a thought, Mr. Moore. Is it possible to have some of these charts in the public waiting room area right in front of where our clerical
Okay, we
staff
have
are?
it. Okay.
I meant on outside, you know where you're going to pay your bill, in that waiting room area? Could they be on easels and sitting there so that when the public comes in, they can actually take a look at that? If anybody who might
I'll
want
have
to.
to look and see, because that's not a very large area, and I want to make sure that we're not
Yeah.
having some hazard. But we do have the handouts, and we can put those in, we can do them as handouts, it might be a way to do that.
Okay.
Let us work on it.
Okay.
Okay, nothing else.
Any other comments, questions, statements, et cetera? No? We adjourn. So now we'll go into the regular meeting and call for approval of the agenda.
So moved.
Second?
Do I hear the ayes and the nays, or the nays?
Aye.
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 For,
Approve the agenda? We just had that one.
right, didn't count the first one. Okay, now we're asking for public comments. Nothing? Okay. Next presentation is from Julie Desimone from Moss Adams.
Well, hello again. Here to give you the results of the audit process. We are just about, we're 99.9% done with the audit, and are hoping to issue, I would say this week, but tomorrow's Friday, so I'm going to give myself until next week to get all through the printing stages. So we just want to give you the results of the audit process and give you kind of a quick recap on what went on. The agenda today, I want to talk about the audit reports that we provide, some required communications with the board, internal control communications, and some other matters that kind of went on during the process of the audit. So this year, again, you received an unmodified opinion. That's our version of a clean opinion. Means we don't have to qualify it or modify it for any reason. This year, you will see a one extra paragraph in the audit opinion called an emphasis of matter paragraph. There's actually two pieces of that paragraph. We had talked before, the biggest piece of this year's audit was one on the side outside of the pensions was really taking a look at your revenue and the changes that were made in your revenue base, making sure everything flowed through correctly. And secondary, there was a pretty significant pension, I mean, we talked about this at the planning meeting, a pension reform that kind of came through in GASB 68. That required you to put the PER system to pretty much break up the obligations in the PER system, and it flows down to your financial statements to every employer in the entire United States. It's on a public employee commitment plan system. So that was successfully implemented. I will say a huge kudos to Carol and her group, because this was not an easy one. Of the 15 years I've been auditing and seen a lot of standards come in and out, by far this has been the biggest undertaking we've had, just a massive reform from a standard, and just the amount of information that has to come through the state and get transitioned into your own record. So we really do appreciate all the hard work. And excitingly enough, it's going to change your financial. It added about 4 to 5 pages of disclosures in your financial statements. So you have even more information now. Now, the one interesting thing that came out of that is called a transitional liability. This is very specific to the state of Oregon. Apparently, about 18 years ago, when when employers were getting into some of the funds in the plans, there were some what they called transitional liabilities and transitional surpluses. So people didn't start at the same place when they came into this plan, into these plans. And instead of, there was a decision made back then, not by the employers, but by the plan itself. There was a decision to say, instead of asking people to either pay money into the plan at that point in time, we're just going to go ahead and put an adder to the rate system. Well, once this GASB 68 started to come down and the reporting had to get down to the employer level, it was realized that that transitional liability was not going to be a part of the 68 adjustment. So it just doesn't fit within that component. So employers had to go back that do have the transitional liability and go ahead and record that obligation. Currently, that obligation is sitting at about $800,000. It does not impact your cash flow because what it does is it's been in your rates, your PERS rates through time, and it just keeps trying to pay off through time through your rate structure. Now, Carol and I have talked about it. It appears to be an obligation you could potentially pay off early if you wanted to, so that's something to consider. But that obligation was put on the books. What's also interesting about this GASB 68 or this pension, which I'm kind of getting ahead of myself, but that's okay, then I don't have to deal with the slide later. But what's also interesting about this is where you ended up is if the pension plan is reported as of a year ago, or the pension numbers are as of a year ago. They don't roll forward to today's date. And at the year end that we have to use for this reporting period, you actually have a pension asset. It means that everything held in trust is larger than the obligations out there. However, as you know, there was a pretty considerable judgment, or not judgment, it's not the right, Supreme Court ruling that came down that decided that certain plan changes were deemed to be unconstitutional. And that is being reported out in the current year. So that asset, though we're showing it as an asset on the books, is really not an asset as you're sitting here today. That's going to be an obligation or a liability, but that doesn't get reported out into your next financial statements. I will admit that I'm one of the ones that really liked this standard when it first came down, because I do like the transparency in getting this onto employers' books. But I will admit there's a lot of implementation issues that came down. And again, we do really appreciate all the hard work that came down from staff, because it was a tremendous undertaking to get this done in time. So that's the new themes in the financial statements that you'll see. We're also required to give a separate report on the Oregon minimum standards or some laws regarding audit standards. And we're pleased to report that we had no findings when it came to the audit standards or the minimum standards. That primarily is, though there's 12 different compliance standards we have to look at, the biggest piece, the two biggest pieces of that is really procurement and contracting and budget. So a couple of communications, just our responsibility under generally accepted auditing standards. The financial statements or managements, we just will place an opinion upon those financial statements. We didn't have, as far as the plan scope and timing, we hit the plan scope and timing, and we will issue well before the December 31st deadline and have everything to the state by then. In fact, we'll be issuing everything by sometime early next week. In the financial statements, we need to let you know if there's any significant changes to your accounting policies. This gets back, it's the rules in the financial statements, and if the rules change, the numbers could change. And the only thing that we had different this year was the pension as we anticipated, is the pension and the transitional liability. There are some accounting estimates within your financial statements. They're very typical within the industry. And these are on the same kind of methodology, or they're not kind of, they are on the same methodology that has been followed in prior years, which is very consistent with the industry. So the audit adjustments, that transitional liability is where I got ahead of myself. Transitional liability, again, approximately $800,000. That's sitting as an adjustment to the financial statements at this point in time. As far as unanticipated audit adjustments or what we call past audit adjustments, so there is a level that we could, if we find something, we could pass on it because it doesn't materially misstate the financial statements. However, we didn't have any findings of those this year, so everything was recorded well into the financial statements. We had no disagreements with management, no consultations with other accountants, and no difficulties encountered in performing the audit. I'm pleased to report that we did not find any material weaknesses or significant deficiencies in your control structures. Control is very strong, and we spent quite a bit of time in your controls, primarily because there's a lot of them over the financial reporting. You have a lot of small transactions that end up being really big numbers at the end of the day. So we take a look at what the cash that's coming in, how is that those billings go out to those customers, and is it effective? We look at cash going out the door and disbursements and payroll. We look at procurement and all the other cycles of plant and service. We take a pretty hefty look at your controls around that as well. So again, that helps us to let you know that we didn't find any significant deficiencies or material weaknesses to report to the board. And though we've had some issues in the past, or we've brought forth some, we take a look at those every year to make sure that they are not repeated, and we have no matters that repeated themselves in the current year. One thing I was going to, and I should have put this in the slide, again, our real areas of emphasis besides the GASB 68 that we knew about, we did take a very hefty look at your revenue process and the changes that were made in the revenue and in the rates this year. And then secondary, we did take, with the new agreements with Sunrise, There are some cost sharing that's going back and forth between Sunrise and between CRW. We took a very extensive look at that. We wanted to make sure that they met the business purpose test. They made sense. The dollar amounts that were going back and forth were agreed upon by both boards and were reasonable going back and forth. And so we took an extremely hefty look at that this year and had no findings on that as well. I think that's good to know. So that's what I have for you. If you've got any questions for me.
Thank you. Sounded really good.
We have a lot of work this year. Thank you, Carol, for that.
Yeah. Thank you, Carol. You did a good job.
And thanks to my staff, because couldn't have done it without Karen, thank you.
She's just getting back from the last minute change, or last couple changes, right? Yeah, we're putting it to take that home. More paper.
Hey, are there any questions at all?
I think I have one, just
Yeah.
to make sure I understand the transitional liability
yeah.
issue. If I just want to think it comes easy.
Okay.
So 18 years ago, some changes were made, and now with the GASB rules and whatnot like that, we're having to account for, if I understood your description, an $800,000 shortfall to the public employee retirement system.
Yes.
And did I understand correctly that through the premiums we're currently paying, that is being paid down as we speak?
Yes. And I should have noted
Okay.
I should have noted too, we considered that a correction of an error. That should have been reported in the past under the current standards. It wasn't made, nobody in the state was made aware of it. It came kind of trickled out through the GASB 68. So you're absolutely right.
Okay, just want to make sure I understood it correctly.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You, one more question. That $800,000 doesn't include the Supreme Court decision, and it doesn't include the lack of them generating enough revenue going into 17 with the rates that were just released in PERS that I just got to read, and I'm going, oh my gosh.
Yes, you were absolutely correct.
Yes,
Yeah. So deep breath.
that's
and-
coming.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I will say that the rates that CRW pays include the repayment of that transitional liability.
Yes.
So if you compare our rates to another similar organization that doesn't have transitional liability, we're paying a higher percentage
Sure.
already.
Yeah.
Probably the school districts are gonna get hit the hardest
They
because
did.
many of them went and borrowed money.
Yeah, they did.
Against that.
They would factor their money
liability.
more than they wish they had.
Community colleges got hit
Yeah.
pretty,
Did they?
yeah, in this transitional liability. Yeah. And then it's because of accounting, I feel like I'm an IRS agent right now, but I'll explain that, but because I'm not, I promise. But you know, it's interesting because all the employers that are sitting in their surplus, so they actually have money kind of owing to them. They get a negative adjustment on their rates. Don't get to account for this like as an asset, because it doesn't meet the definition of an asset, but it does meet the definition of a liability on the other side. So it is a very
But that makes
interesting.
sense.
Yeah.
Because, I mean,
Totally
you
unfair.
wouldn't- you wouldn't want it to be an asset. I mean, it's just a reduction in the rate you're paying, and that's, there's nothing wrong with
And
that.
there's an obligation on your side.
Yeah.
If you were to leave first today, you'd have to pay this piece out.
Any other questions? Very good, well, thank you both. And we have an insurance presentation from Jeff Griffin.
Thank you for allowing me to be here tonight. I will be very brief, and what I bring tonight is just fun news. You're currently insured with your state pool, SDAO, which is member-owned. As a pool, they don't make a profit. Traditional insurance companies make a profit, they distribute that to board members and stockholders. Pools don't do that. Government entity pools, if they make what would look like a profit, it comes back in the form of dividends or reduced rates or enhanced coverages. And that's important to note. It makes them a little more robust in coverages. It also makes them a lot more nimble in the insurance industry. The good news is that you're with the pool for many years, and in 2003, you left the pool for 2.5 years, and you're back in the pool. We were able to secure coverage there midterm this last year, 7/1. The good news is that when you started the year last year, you were with a for-profit insurance company and paying just over $288,000. Those rates came down significantly. It made it worth our time, it made it worth your time to move the coverages midterm. We did move those effective 7/1. You saw a nice rate reduction, and I'm here to tell you that you've seen a little bit further rate reduction going into next year. Your current rates last year were $288,000, this year are $205,000. So that's about a 29% reduction. I'm thrilled with that, but I do want to drill down on that and talk a little more about that. If you benchmark this with the year you left SDAO, which was the end of 2012, you were paying $182,000. Now, we would think that some of that would be in liability because of all the transition and the claims that we've had, but it is not. A small amount of it is, $125. That's the difference between 12 and today. Most of it is in growth inside the district, in budget growth, and in property growth. I do believe that what you will see this next year, we will be writing a projection letter for your budget cycle in February. We will be recommending that special districts plan on about a 5% change, not because of the rate structure changing, but because of growth in property values and growth inside revenue streams. With that said, I will offer to do a training class where I feed each of you. You can't eat more than $49.99 worth of food, but I'll do a training if I miss this. Most will go up about 5%, you will not. I believe that you're actually going to see a slight rate reduction, and part of that is I think we're going to enhance the best practices. Your staff did a phenomenal job. We got 8% last year. I think we'll get a little more this next year. But also I think that we'll be able to battle down the liability rate just a little bit. Currently we sit at a 61.17% loss ratio. When we left SDAO, we were at about a 20.87% loss ratio. That will wane if current management practices continue. I think you sit in a very delicious position moving forward. I am thrilled to be here. A nice rate reduction. Now we need to work a little harder and get some deductibles down on our liability and push harder for credits next year. Any questions or concerns?
Thank you. Sounds very good. It's been a good night.
I'm going for the meal.
So far, so good here.
Banging on the meal.
This is truly a credit to all of your employees here that are extremely risk averse, to your management staff, and to the board. And it is an honor to serve you. Thank you very much. Happy holidays.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And thank you to staff.
Have a great.
Okay, action items. The first issue is the acceptance of the audited financial statement for fiscal year 2015.
So moved.
Second. Do I hear a vote on the acceptance?
Just say all in
All in favor?
favor. Aye.
So passed. Okay, project acceptance, Southeast Culver Street, water line relocation from Madam Bornstead.
There's a drop motion there. I can speak first, I guess.
Mr. Chairman,
Pleasure to work.
point of order, can we put the motion on the floor and then move forward?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay. I move the board approve and authorize the board president's signature of the notice of acceptance for the Southeast Tolbert Street water line relocation CIP 145148, which establishes the project completion date as December 10th, 2015.
Second.
Do I vote to approve?
No, video presentation.
Now it's presentation and discussion.
Presentation.
And then, okay.
I'll keep it brief. This is another project completed this summer and fall. Happy to say the project went as planned. You've got the details there in the write-up. I'll just kind of hit on the main points. As you know, the county is conducting a Tolbert Street / overpass project just north of us here to connect the Camp Whitcomb area, Old Industrial Way, Minuteman Way, across the railroad tracks to 82nd Drive. And as a result of that improvement, we had to relocate some of our older cast iron water lines up there. A nice thing about the project is that we were able to upsize those lines and provide, at least in one spot, a water line where there wasn't one before, to increase some looping in just a small piece of the community. But generally some good improvements made, going from 6-inch and 4-inch cast to 12 and 8-inch. And then we abandoned a section of 12-inch water line that would have been under about 25 feet of fill where the new bridge is going to go. So all in all, a good project. Kerr Contractors won the low bid back in June, and they did a great job. As you know, they're heavily involved with the JTA, the Sunrise JTA project as the general on that for the county, right, and ODOT rather. And having them close by, I think, really helped. I want to shout out to our staff who've been working with them, our inspector, namely, and Bob too, on the JTA project, who really helped us with the Tolbert project, and that they were used to CRW standards, used to working with our staff, and that really helped the Tolbert job go well. So as I wrote there, the original contract amount was just over $312,000. We ended up at $1,500.90, or $1,590 over, about a 0.5% increase, and that was due basically to some minor quantity changes. We had to dig a little deeper in a couple spots, had a little bit more excavation and backfill, a couple of more pipe fittings. Again, kind of a similar story, but much less of a degree as the Bell project, as we call that one. So all in all, again, very successful project. Our CIP budgeted amount, as you can see there, was $370,000, so we came in well under the original budgeted amount on the project.
Yeah, $56,000 worth. That's good.
We have, I have a couple of quick questions.
Sure.
Where are you on the Monterey project?
The Monterey project, I'll be presenting that one for acceptance next month.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
And then do we have stuff to do at Boyer and Oddie with those realignments?
We will. We are in consultation with the county and their consultant right now, so we'll be working with them on those realignments.
Any questions?
Call the question.
Okay, call question.
All in favor?
All in favor?
All in favor?
Just Jim, for form, just ask all in favor.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, the next is on the schedule. The consent agenda.
Mr. Chairman, I move to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
Second. So moved. The vote?
Aye.
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 Passed. Informational report now is this South Side Service Area Project.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Bob's passing out the copy of the presentation, and there were some extra copies made too. I made a public for in the audience, and we have a copy as well. The backbone. We're talking a lot about the backbone, and I wanted to try to take this opportunity to present probably I don't know, 25,000 foot level, 20,000 foot. We've been at 40 or 30 before. Just honing down a little bit more into kind of the project execution of this initiative that we're putting forward. And my goal is, as we move forward with these projects, to give, if not monthly updates to the board, at least, every other month, however frequent it makes sense as we move forward, to present information to you about how we're going on each respective project. So this is kind of a baseline. Some of the stuff you'll see and hear as I talk will be familiar to you. Hopefully some of it is newsworthy as well. We'll be kind of referencing the schedule, the project listing, and the map that you have or have seen. And I've got some of that in the presentation as well. So just an outline of what I want to talk about tonight. Again, quickly going through an overview. I don't want to repeat too much, but again, an opportunity there. And then talking about our strategy as we move forward with these projects. You've seen the schedule, you've seen the listing, we talked a little bit about why the phasing, Paul's given some information on the engineering behind it, but giving you a little more information on, as we move forward with these projects, what we're thinking in the way of planning and design, involving other entities, involving other parties. Property acquisition, construction, of course, and then I provided details of each project towards the latter half of the presentation, and depending on time, I hadn't really intended on going through each individually. I can do that if the board would like, but again, the information is there for your review. So, again, the overview map. You're fairly familiar with this by now. The backbone project, as you know, is primarily in our south service area, south of the Clackamas River, but there are components, including the 152nd Reservoir and the pipeline down 224 Harbor, that are on the north side. We've broken it up into phases. Phase 1 is, again, there's kind of a northern half, if you look at this map this way, of the backbone, and phase 2, of course, is the more southerly area. So again, I can jump back to that slide if you want. We have a map there too, so hopefully it's fairly transparent. Just reviewing the schedule really quick. You've seen it again already. I just want to kind of break down the why and what for. Phase 1, just a 4-year timeline, 2016 to 2019. Full years there, 4 full years. And then phase 2, 2020 to 2023. And of course, we know that's linked to the bonding requirements. We're setting forth a schedule that's going to be linked to that, and the expectation, of course, as part of those bonds that we complete the work on time. As projects progress, each individual project progresses, and this will be part of future updates. I'll be presenting more detailed schedules associated with each project in order as they appear in the phase. Question?
Once the phase 1 is completed, will we be delivering water throughout the phase?
Yes, once phase 1 is completed, we'll have the ability to deliver water within the areas that those projects serve.
Okay.
Yeah.
To Redmond.
There will, yeah, those improvements will benefit those northern pressure zones you can see on the map. Redland, primarily Redland pressure zone. There is a chance that the Bradley projects, which right now are kind of slated towards the latter half of the backbone, just depending on how things flesh out, if there was an opportunity to move those forward sooner, then we'd have more continuity and crossover to the whole government area. Good question. So again, this is really a baseline schedule, as you've seen. To get you more detail as we move forward. Are there any questions? I guess I could kind of ask that on the schedule. In my mind, it's very straightforward. I deal with these often, but I want to provide the opportunity if there are any questions to clarify things. If something's not clear on this, it's very summary in nature, as I hope you can see. The tasks that are associated with each project are very summary tasks. Within each phase of a project, whether it's pre-design, design, bidding, construction, you have lots of little minutia that isn't on this.
You didn't completely answer my question. I live on the south side, but not across Avenue Creek from Oregon City. Will I be receiving power treated water at the end of phase 1?
What's your specific?
Holly Lane, no.
Yeah, Holly Lane, yeah.
No. No,
Pardon?
no, you will not.
Bob and I had a conversation, because I asked Bob that tonight. They're somewhere between $500,000 and $1 million. They could reconfigure the piping that comes down Redland Road to the Holly Lane pump station, and then they could serve you.
Yeah, there's definitely some options and flexibility within the projects, that we haven't got there yet with the design.
This is a general guideline of what we're doing and where we're going, understanding that there's going to be changes as time goes on.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yep.
Is there any way to get this from like an 11 by 17?
Yeah. I don't know if we, but yeah, we do have
I
some.
mean, I've
copies.
seen that one, and I've seen this one, but I
Yeah.
can't take that with me, and, oh, look at that.
You always need your stuff, so we
Nice. Thank you. Now I can read.
Okay, well, moving on to budget, and again, this is something that's should be familiar to you by now. We have 12 projects within the backbone structure. I'm going to go into those, I guess, here in a bit, but again, just to reiterate, I think this was mentioned last week at the work session, that the budgets include design and construction costs. They include project administration, kind of those overhead indirects, whether it's CRW, personnel or equipment, whatever, legal costs, contingency costs. Those are all built into our estimates. These are fairly, somewhat high-level estimates, a budgetary estimate that we would use for, obviously, the bonding, similar to what we'd use in our annual budgeting for our normal CIP program. As we proceed with more detail in our designs, then we re-estimate and refine our budgets until we get to a construction estimate. Okay. So talking about how are we gonna do these projects, how are we gonna execute the work. In the preliminary phases, and these comments I've got in the next couple of slides really do apply in a general sense to all of the sub-projects within the backbone. We've talked to some degree about our surveying needs for the backbone. Obviously, it's many miles of water line, a number of constraints, a number of interesting conditions in the sites. We have some property acquisition that we'll need to be talking about, the pump station. We have easements in some areas that we'll need to consider and be in dialogue with property owners. So obviously a lot of preliminary type planning things that we'll be looking into in each project. One of the ideas is that we'll look into procuring surveying services, topographical land surveying services from probably multiple surveying firms. Right now the district has 2 surveyors under general, I'll say a blanket agreement that we use for anything from a boundary survey for a property, a reservoir site or whatnot, to a more detailed topographical survey for a water line alignment or construction staking for a water line job. Right now, we're using one of those firms in the Butterfield, which is first on our list in the backbone in the layout for the Butterfield project. Probably the amount of work that we're looking at for a surveyor, we don't want to overload one surveyor. And it would be much probably better to the life of the projects to have multiple surveyors that we're able to work closely with and probably conduct surveys as needed, concurrently with each other. So we're going to be looking at probably researching our surveying needs and bringing those back to the board at some point in the near future. Talk about how we would procure those services, whether we would look for an exemption of some sort under our rules, under the LCRBs, to procure those services. So just kind of an additional piece as we move forward with surveying needs. And really what we want to do is much like we would do with an engineering firm if we were seeking outside engineering services, we want to bring in a surveyor that is capable of obviously meet the scope requirements of a specific project survey. So there's a lot of surveyors out there, a lot of capable ones. We definitely want to research and solicit at some point for probably a couple of those. As far as design goes, we have a few projects in the backbone where we'll be talking about, do we do those in-house or do we do them outsource? Our typical projects, I'll call them typical, but our typical water main, water transmission main projects, we have that expertise in-house by and large to design and manage the construction of those. For more specialty work like pump stations and reservoirs, we may be looking at hiring out some engineering expertise to assist with the structural, mechanical, electrical, the other non-civil engineering disciplines that are associated with those pump station and reservoir projects. As far as property acquisition goes, as we look at our routes in our mapping, in our modeling, we're at the point where Bob and staff have spent a lot of time looking at routes, looking at how are we going to size these transmission mains, pump stations, and reservoirs to meet the project needs. As that's proceeded, we have certain areas where we know we're going to need to either cross private property or potentially purchase property to make these projects work. So probably as part of the surveyor tasks, we'll have them assist us with, probably with the title company as well, but basically researching these properties and starting dialogue with property owners early on, so that this isn't something that hangs us up later on in the course of work. Really getting the detail figured out now with property acquisition, I think, is going to be key as we move forward with these projects. We've already started some dialogue on the Butterfield project, and I'll talk more about that later. There's a few properties to the south of that project between Redland Road and Beckman, kind of where the end of line is going to be for the connection for that project. We're going to need to talk to the property owners about easement for the water. And then just a reminder there at the bottom that all property purchases and easements are, of course, board actions, so we'll be coming back to you with updates as well as the final approval of those.
Do you see any problems with the easements or right-of-way community?
I was going to ask the same question.
You know, I think in general I don't. I mean, I think the sooner we start discussion, obviously, is going to make that, if not easier, at least less painful. You know, we have to go through land use on some of these properties with the county, the reservoirs and the pump stations. As far as easements for the water lines, you know, those are, again, you don't know until you get there. Most property owners, the ones at least we've talked at this point, are pretty supportive. The ones we've spoken with, the Butterfield project, are very accommodating. You know, we may have to pay something for an easement,
Sure.
but to start.
I just am concerned, I've been involved with number of projects that were bonded, started prior to the land use having been nailed down. A decade passed before they built one damn easement.
Which is why we want to do the surveying and get these easements out in front of us now.
Yeah, exactly.
Rather than waiting, you know, I have seen.
They want to pay for two designs.
Yeah, and I have seen, quite frankly, as you go in to get easements, you get a property owner that has had a difficult piece of property to sell, and they say, okay, in order to get the easement, you gotta buy the whole parcel.
Yeah.
I mean, so there's things like
I
that.
got 10 acres here and you get to own it all.
Yeah, and so, you know, we'll have to do that, and that's why when you saw in the presentation, you talked about not only doing the alignment work, surveying and so forth, but also working with title companies and everybody else. Because some of these areas are remote and, you know, a lot of the historical, I don't have to tell you guys that in Clackamas County, maybe on the back of a napkin somewhere. And so, you know, you want to make sure that you've done your due diligence in making sure that you've done all that exploration up front.
One bit of information I'll throw in on that is on the Hatton Road project, the county has expressed some initial interest in that project because their roadway monuments on Hatton Road are in sad shape. And probably that goes for a number of the rural county roadways out there. What that means in the, for our project, I couldn't tell you at this point, but I do know they're interested in possibly partnering or doing something with our surveying efforts for parts of those roadways.
To remonument those roads.
Yes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, well, we've had a long-standing monumentation process.
Yeah.
You need all the help you can get.
Okay. So construction. Similar to the design piece of the backbone projects, we may look at traditional versus alternative construction methods for some of the projects. You know, design bid build fits really well for again our typical water transmission main type projects, and even I would say it's been successful with reservoirs and pump stations. But there could be applications of a non-traditional, an alternative process like CWC or design build, where the contractor is procured through not just a low bid method, through an evaluative process, and they're brought on earlier in a project to take advantage of their capabilities to help engineer and design and construct the project. So those are some things we'll be thinking about. Regardless of the route we take or how we're going to construct the work, all the work will be done and built in accordance with our standards, our local contract review board rules, ORSs, and any other applicable rules and requirements. Okay, so like I said, the backbone is composed of 12 projects. Phase 1 is 7 of those, about $23 million. Phase 2 is 5 of them, just over 15 million. They're pretty much the remainder of the presentation is a breakdown of each project, with just a little bit of maybe more detailed information on each. What I was going to do was walk through maybe the first few of those. I could definitely go through all of them. If that's the board's desire, or you can tell me what you'd like to do.
I guess I'd like to hear something about timeline, mostly because once we get the bonding secured, the kicker starts. And my concern is that we don't run past that time frame. And so all of this stuff is in the mix, but I think you start at 3 years and you work the other direction.
Right.
So the sooner we get some detail about that,
Yep.
the better. So
Absolutely.
And essentially, as the board knows, we've already started.
yeah,
You
I'm
know,
assuming
so,
that.
So Adam, if you have that one.
Yeah, to give you a, would it be okay if I mean, I can do whatever you want. I can talk through these.
If you want, I'm good with these.
Or I can jump ahead.
I'd rather hear the timeline thing.
Me too,
Alluded to,
I'd be more
leave it at
interested
that.
in
Okay.
knowing
Well, why don't
how the
I,
timeline thing's gonna work. We can all ask questions, I can email you and say, hey, what did you do on this one here?
Yep. Well, that's great. I'll just jet through these. Really, these are, they may look a little familiar. I really just took snapshots out of the schedule and
They're very helpful.
added some
You know,
detail, kind of give you maybe a 1 or 2 sentence description of what is that project doing. I mean, it's okay to look at a line on paper, but then actually hear what it does, hopefully is a little helpful. So we can go back to these. I'm going to scoot all the way to slide 23. And this hopefully at least starts to answer some of those questions that you have. Really, this is a summary of kind of where we are today. And as you would imagine, I don't have something to report on every project, but there are a few of them that we're looking at now, and those are in line with the first 2 or 3 on the schedule. The Butterfield Lane project has been in action, so to speak, for several months. We hired a surveyor back in, let's see, they started in October, and they are probably 80% done, and anticipating they're going to be complete with the topo survey for the Butterfield alignment, including the Redwood Reservoir site, by the end of this month. Now, what that means is that once we get their completed survey, we can take that and start CADing, we can start designing an alignment. And that, again, will connect the Redwood Reservoirs in a new route down Butterfield Lane to Potter Road and then south to Redwood and back. So that's good news. Next week I'll be meeting out there on the reservoir site, and we'll look at some of the ins and outs of how we're going to connect at the tank site itself. And of course, not only the existing reservoirs, but planning some piping and whatnot for the new reservoir that we're going to build out there, number 3.
So you mentioned reservoirs. Do you anticipate decommissioning any of the existing reservoirs after?
No.
So you're not going to?
Nope. All of our modeling entails keeping the reservoirs.
Keeping all the storage we've got.
Yep.
Good.
We don't want to get rid of any stuff.
So,
Given the climate situation, I think that's a good
yeah, no,
idea.
that's what I was wondering. I hadn't heard whether or not we were going to do it or not. Hadn't heard that. And so the other question is, should we someday be successful in getting water across the bridge? Do you see multiple projects going on, or is it a point A to point B kind of thing?
No. If you jump back to the schedule.
Back to this.
Yeah. I mean, I guess, I could point to this one. This is the plan. There we go. So, can everybody see that okay? As you can see.
See the light.
Look at the blue line.
How old are you?
These are old eyes out.
Yeah, how old are you? Come again?
And he's sitting there with glasses on.
All right, the schedule is maybe the way to go. Bear with me here.
Well, didn't they answer the question that there will be some things that will be
Yeah.
done simultaneously and other things that will be done incrementally?
Yeah, well, pretty much that was it.
Absolutely.
I mean, so the root of that question was, do we need the water to wet pipe, to test it, to get people paid, or do they have to sit and wait?
The answer is yes. But, it's going to depend on what project, of course.
Yeah, sure.
That goes for pump stations.
Yeah, absolutely.
We can't get up over the hill if we don't have a way to push it there.
Yeah.
In some cases. As you can see from the schedule, this schedule starts at 2016, okay, so January. And then, as you see us moving, it's broken up into quarters. And again, this is an 8-year timeline, so a year is about,
Yeah.
so as we progress into next summer, you can see where we've got a lot of parallel work going on.
Mhm.
Okay, and you've got the 152nd reservoir. That alone is a 2-year project.
Yeah.
When you consider all the phases. Construction of that would be 9 months.
And so how do you certify a reservoir at 152nd if we don't have
Water to it.
water to it?
Well, in that case, we would.
Okay,
Yeah. 152nd.
right answer.
Yep. Same with Redland Reservoir.
Mhm.
Then we'll have the means to fill it,
Mhm.
and Beaver Creek. Those all have. We can almost build piping there today and have a means to fill it.
Sure, right.
Oh,
But you're essentially talking about wet as you go
yes.
in this,
That's kind of what I
in
think.
this
Yeah,
project.
Yep.
Yeah.
The other thing, Adam, that might help the board anyway, is as you look at a revision to this schedule, if you could put in, I think to get at Commissioner McNeil's question, where those bonding deliverables are, you just maybe put some kind of a mark on your project chart. Because I think what you're trying to do is say, okay, are we meeting our bonding commitments?
Yeah, so we're responsible for making sure that we're,
Spending the
we've got a
money.
sanity check here, that we're, you know, doing our due diligence to make sure that we're hitting the mark, and if not, we make the best we get, we gotta get.
Yeah, and Bob's come up for a good reason. I won't steal his thunder, but
He was wiggling real bad.
He's actually
I was waiting for him to get
started,
up.
he's actually started that process already. He has a couple of rough drafts of this very schedule with, you know, essentially dollar signs. And they're showing when we're getting the money.
And I fully expect this to have several modifications to it. I mean,
You're gonna see a lot.
this is the beginning point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
This is really designed to show you at a pretty high level, the kind of information that, first of all, that Adam has put together. Secondly, the kind of information that you can expect to receive as we move through the project. And then third, if there are additional items like where are we in relationship to the money, this is an opportunity to talk about that as well. There will be many overlays as we start rolling out this thing because of the size of this project. But we want to make sure that you all are getting the information that you want and need as we're in the planning phase of this phase of the project.
Yeah. My last question, is there any in-water work? And two, is there any stuff that's gonna require any special environmental?
We do have a few areas, and correct me if I'm wrong, but where we may be crossing, you know, small streams. Those are primarily going to be over roadways, and there will be existing culverts. But yeah, according to the Corps of Engineers, most of those are waters of the U.S., they're tributaries too, and you know, we got to find a way around them, and you know, whether that's going under or over, probably would happen. But so yeah, that could be something we consider as we move along.
I mean, we have a project up north here, the Sunnybrook Interchange, that was held up for 2 years because the environmental part was not done correctly.
Yeah.
And we got stopped real hard for
Yep.
that. We don't like to be on that side of the
No,
equation.
no, you don't.
I think the only other tuppy that I think Bob and I have talked about is that there is a BPA easement, and we're gonna have to be looking at as well.
But I do have a plan B for that.
Good.
Well, Volvo Power can be very friendly sometimes.
Yeah, they can.
Very accommodating other
Sometimes
times.
anytime
It's
it's
a no.
fed, it can take a long time.
And if we don't have the time sequencing, we look at the alternative route.
Good.
Do you envision a situation where a section of the project is done, but it's not connected to anything, so you can't wet that section of the project, but you do have to pay the construction company? And then, if that were to occur, do you hold them accountable so that when it's wetted, if there's a problem, they have to come back and take care of it?
We've sequenced the work. It's always going to be able to be wetted.
So you don't anticipate that?
And used.
Okay, so you don't anticipate that scenario?
I do not.
Okay, thank you.
So once it passes pressure, then you chlorinate, and then you would put it in service.
Yes.
Yeah, good.
That's the intent.
That's the right way to do it. Yeah,
Yeah, we don't want to leave anything hanging out there.
I don't
We can
either.
help.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that was what I took from your question.
yeah, and that's what I was wondering, I didn't know how.
Okay. Just jump back to that ending slide again. Let's see, we're talking about Butterfield. As I said, we're starting some initial conversations with property owners near the Redland and Beckman Road. Between those two roads where the line will connect, about an easement to be there. And once, like I said, once we get the survey information at the end of the month, we'll be starting design. So January is going to be pretty hot and heavy with Butterfield Lane design.
And the other one is 152nd Reservoir. We do have an existing pre-design that was done 20 years ago? 15?
10
Okay.
10 years ago.
It was done a while back, and we'll be reviewing that. You know, a lot of it's, even though it's gonna have to be redone, there's some value to that design. It had gone a long way in that process before it was halted. And then, of course, property, we own the property, of course, but just starting some initial discussions with the community, that'll make the land use process go easier, and whatever we can do on the front end of the land use steps, we'll begin that work as well. Just so you know, the 152nd and the Springwater Road, the schedule says, I think, June 1st of next year, of 2016. But, as has been mentioned, there's preliminary work will be beginning now, of course. Springwater Road, just one interesting point there, that we know there's rock. It's gonna be a surprise, but it was confirmed during the Carter Bridge project, and that's something we're gonna have to plan for and deal with. Obviously, knowing about it now is gonna help us come up with a solution there. Yeah. So we'll look at some point in the future, we'll probably bring in a geotechnical consultant to assist with that design.
Are you thinking doing a few holes?
Yep, we'll do some borings.
A lot of holes.
Yep.
I can think of the state highway project, it still isn't done.
Yes.
Go to the geotech.
Yeah, down Highway 20, right?
Yeah, as a matter of fact, anyway.
Yeah.
Hundreds of millions of dollars.
And lastly, just again, some general comments on things we'll be looking at for all the projects. Will be, a lot of the hydraulic modeling has been completed. That's how we know, we have some line sizes, we have reservoir sizes, we have pump station capacities that we're sharing now. But we'll be looking at those in more detail and making any revisions that are necessary there. And I already talked about property purchase and acquisition, and easements, getting that information sooner than later, and looking at surveying services. So, does that help kind of put it in a...
Are you gonna do the public outreach yourself, or are you gonna hand that off to somebody?
I'll be managing it, but I'm not a one-man show.
Yeah.
We'll probably do it now, so.
Oh, yeah, okay, I was just wondering whether we were gonna have somebody help with that, or whether we were gonna keep.
Yep.
My experience is that when you're talking to ratepayers and the public, they're talking to the principals. It goes over a lot better than talking through a third party.
When you talk about public outreach, are you talking about the area around which the construction will be starting? Is that what you're talking about?
Yes.
And
We
somebody
get,
that, if we have a ratepayer or somebody that's upset about something, you just have to have somebody there to feel
Public
all of
ombuds
that.
person.
Yeah, that knows the project and can make
You're
a
gonna
decision.
get issues like the city did with the Forest Heights project when they decided, even though they had the reservoir on their plans for about 20 years, when you get to the point where you're ready to do the construction, what are we gonna, how do we know the reservoir won't leak? What happens if it does leak and all the water goes and wipes out our house and so that? They don't wanna talk to a third party, they wanna talk to the people that are involved.
Yeah, when that traco shows up, it's time.
To Tony on that, we'll probably end up putting this information on the website as a further form of outreach on the front end, getting the word out. So.
You're talking about the CRW website.
Yeah, our website.
When do you anticipate that being there?
Soon.
Yeah, I'd like it sooner than later.
When would you like it done?
And please make sure that there's a caveat that says things will change.
Subject to change.
Yes, absolutely.
But yeah, because I get people asking me occasionally, and I've showed them some of this stuff, but I would love to be able to just say, you can go online, you can look at the whole project.
Yeah, I could get it up there tomorrow or next week if our webmaster is able
Probably next week.
to accommodate it.
So give yourself some time.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, Within a reasonable period of
I mean, by the first of the year, hopefully.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, the holidays, yeah, a lot of stuff going on, but 16 is the,
But the public has to understand, the people in the area, that there may be some modifications.
yeah.
Once the ground is broken, everything goes the way you plan it, absolutely. It just doesn't happen that way.
It's like a battle plan in war. The enemy doesn't read it. So everything changes.
One of the comments that I have, we have our partner from Sunrise, is that there's some misunderstanding, I think, in the prior meeting about the 152nd Avenue Reservoir. And I think it's important to clarify. The question was asked, as we were planning for this project, whether or not we had budgeted the money for the 152nd Avenue Reservoir. The answer to that is yes, but I think that there was an assumption made from that we were gonna go it alone. And that's a decision that hasn't been made yet. But for purposes of planning and being able to move this project forward and making sure that there's sufficient funds available, we have included it to this project as a CRW project.
I think another way to frame that is that, the way I saw us function was that because of the bonding, and only the bonding,
Right.
it was about making sure, because we're making decisions ahead of other decisions,
Right.
we needed to be sure that that money was included in the bond, so we had it.
Right.
If that contingency was where we ended up going, but it's not the decision of the board to go it alone.
I'll leave it at that.
Okay.
That's really all I have. If there's any more questions,
Any other questions?
discussion?
Any
That's,
From the public,
thanks.
does anybody have any questions? Very good, well, thank you.
Thank you.
I'm just glad we're talking about building water stuff.
I was just saying, you took it right away from me there, but, so much time that we spent going over policies, and rewriting our policies and straightening out the budget and all of the things that we had to do administratively and dealing with lawsuits and all the rest of that, and now we actually are a water board that talks about water.
Well, and getting our rates where they needed to be so we can even do this.
Yep.
So,
What a concept.
yeah.
There was one here that Warren had a public comment.
He left.
No, he left.
You met me.
So that's,
You got last.
You got one more comment over here.
This should be quick. My name is Jim Martin. I live in Oak Grove. I'm on the Oak Lodge Water District Board of Commissioners, and I've been assigned to visit you guys for your meetings.
Thank
You
you.
should see me frequently. I thought this was a very interesting meeting, both the audit and the projects. But the second thing I'd like to talk about quickly is that something you may know a little bit about, which is that the Oak Lodge Water District and the Oak Lodge Sanitary District are talking about consolidating. We are now on a path where we believe we will do that. We are currently aiming at an election in May of 2016 and consolidation in July of 2016. Now that's, as you were saying, open to change, depending upon what we find out. But we have a detailed consultant report confirming that there were significant savings. I wouldn't say huge, I would say significant. And so we're proceeding with all the step-by-step one ought to go through to make sure you're doing the right thing and make sure the public understands what you're doing. Anyway, so that's what's going on with us.
Good luck.
good, yeah. Thank you. Any other comments, questions? Okay, the next issue to discuss is the manager's report.
Well, I think that everything that we have, not that I know, everything that we have done as a staff think the board has probably already heard. First of which is, we've spent a tremendous amount of time working on the bond and trying to get ready for that. As you know, we have a trip scheduled down south to San Francisco in January of 2016. And Commissioner Kalani will be traveling with us as we go down and make our presentation to the bond insurers and the bond raters. And those are going to be separate presentations when we get down there. You also know that we, with the board's concurrence, identified our agent here for the underwriting, which was the D.A. Davidson firm. They're a local firm, and the gentleman from their firm was here at our last meeting, Matt Donahue, to observe the presentations that were provided to the board. It looks like staff, in this case being Bob and Carol, running point, they have been doing a tremendous amount of work. Fantastic job for kind of the first time kind of going through that. As you know, this is going to be the largest capital project that CRW has ever done. And as a result, one of the things that was underscored by the administrators that we're doing that the information that we are presenting has to be thorough and accurate. And the feedback we've got is that they're very pleased with the work that our staff has done in order of getting that ready. The board also approved resolution 07-2016 to authorize the notice and publishing of CRW's intent to issue bonds. And the staff also updated the results of the meeting that occurred with the bond counsel and the bond administrator. The other thing that we've been working on is the interviewing process for general managers. There's another meeting that's scheduled for this coming Monday for the board to interview 2 additional applicants.
What date did you say?
Monday.
It's coming Monday.
Next
Yeah,
Monday.
the 14th, yeah. And that's going to be at 4 o'clock, which will give the board time to kind of organize, grab a bite to eat with the actual interview starting at 4:30. Excuse me.
You sound like me.
I feel like I'm.
You do.
Excuse me. The other thing that, as you know, that we held was a board work session and a special meeting on the 23rd. We needed to redo our elections, and Commissioner Humberton stepped aside because of work that he's doing with his campaign to kind of took his name out of consideration. What had happened there, for those of you who were present and not, is that we had conducted the initial election by secret ballot. We were advised that that was not appropriate, that we needed to do it by voice vote, and so the board did that. And as a result, Commissioner Kalani was nominated as president. Commissioner Angier was then elected as the secretary, and Commissioner Soa was elected as the treasurer. So those are the board's officers for the remainder of this year, fiscal year. Although I guess we're not on fiscal year anymore, we're on biennium stuff, but that's for budget purposes, this fiscal year. We also passed the resolution 08-2016 because of the nature of the election. There was many action items that were passed from July 1 till the present date. And so we passed Resolution 2016 to reaffirm those votes so that everything was kind of legal and above board. We adjourned that meeting, and then we held this special meeting. And one of the things that the board had asked be done, and I have copies of those here, if you could hand these out. You had agreed to have Commissioner Humbertson provide his notes to Commissioner Kalani and Angier to look at your questions that you would have in a joint executive session that is being planned with the Sunrise Water Board. The process that I believe that Commissioners Kalani and Sunrise had agreed to is that we would put together a series of questions that our board has. We would share that with the Sunrise Board, and then they would do likewise, and we would then go into a joint executive session and use those as kind of the talking paper or agendas for that meeting. Commissioners Kalani and Angier, myself, and Karen sat down and kind of scrubbed the document that you have in front of you, and I guess what we'd like for you to do is to review those action items or questions that are listed on that document so that Commissioner Kalani could forward that on to the Sunrise Board. So that has done as requested by the board.
Do we have a date for doing?
I guess I would defer to Commissioner Kalani, President Kalani, as to when he would want those back.
The 21st of December.
Just when the meeting is going to be,
Right.
you also, I think, wanted to allow time for Sunrise to receive the feedback, and so we had talked about at least if they could get them back to you by what, I guess, the first of the week, so we can get those over to Sunrise.
So did Sunrise agree to the 21st?
Yeah.
Yes, that has been agreed to.
Didn't know that.
That is, oh, I'm sorry, that's why we
Didn't know.
we put it down.
Yeah, we scheduled, but we didn't know whether they were going to.
There was a conversation, I think it has been confirmed now. And that is supposed to be, as I said, a joint meeting that's also will have meal service. It will be here, and I think it's at 5 o'clock. That's
What it says.
Okay. And then the last item that I have is that Clackamas County contacted myself and the other water providers. Apparently they have had the industrial water rights from the Blue Heron paper mill has been transferred to the county. The county indicates that they have some another political jurisdiction, which they didn't tell us who they were, that was interested in it and wanted to know if the water providers were interested. I believe that my peers and I all indicated that we were not interested in the industrial rights, that they really don't serve any purpose for us. I do think it was a nice gesture for the county to at least contact us before they did the things with it, so.
That's one.
Oh,
Those water rights are all to the Willamette.
yeah.
Yes,
So,
Yeah, the discharge is all the way
yeah.
yes.
around. The discharge.
There's a lot of things that, in order to use those for potable purposes would you want to talk about years, it would take a long time to do that. And as you know, the permits that we at Sunrise had, I think we turned those back, the ones that we had pending. So that's the end of my report.
Any questions from the public? Very good, thank you. That ends our session. Assuming there are no other questions or issues to discuss, we will adjourn.
Oh, I guess I do this tonight.